Hello everyone and welcome back to another math video. Today we're going to be looking at how do you find the measures of complementary, supplementary, vertical, and adjacent angles, similar to the problems that you see up on the screen here. Just a reminder, this is the normal version. If you'd like the speedrun version where we go through it pretty quickly, I will link that in the description below. All right, your Ricasso Recap starts now. In 30 seconds or less, here's what you need to know before you start this lesson. Firstly, you should already be familiar with complementary, supplementary, vertical, adjacent, and congruent angles. Okay, you should know how to look at a diagram, a picture, a figure, and identify where those angles are. Today's new lesson is how do you find the measures of those angles. Secondly, you should know how to solve, we'll say, one-step equations, so similar to this problem. If you'd like refreshers on either of these topics, I will link a video in the description below. Please go watch that before you start this lesson. All right, new lesson starts now. Here we go. So adjacent and vertical angles. All right, we should be able to look at this drawing on the left and say, oh yeah, I see the X here. Okay, and whenever you see an X shape in geometry, right, we should be thinking of vertical angles, and we know that with vertical angles, okay, that means the opposite sides of the X are exactly equal. So if the left side is 40, that must mean this is also 40 degrees. And the problem just says find the value of Y, so our final answer is 40. For this problem on the right, okay, these are adjacent angles. These are right next to each other. And this red arc that we have here tells me that this angle plus this angle has to equal 75 degrees. So the way that we write that is t plus 45 equals 75. This one you could solve algebraically. Maybe you can solve that in your head. Okay, here's the algebra. Minus 45, t equals 30, final answer. Okay, so 30 plus the 45 together makes the 75. All right, here's our cool clock for today, which means that it's time for you to practice what you just learned. Go ahead and pause the video and try these two problems on your own. And when you're ready, you can unpause the video and we'll check your answers. Okay, now that you've had time to work these problems, let's check your solutions. For the first problem, you should have just added the two numbers together to get 69 degrees. For the second problem, you should have just gotten 72.7. There are a couple ways to go about it, but maybe the easiest, okay, remember to always look for vertical angles. Look for an X shape, right? So here's an X shape right here. I know that this side is 72.7, which means that the opposite side also has to be 72.7. All right, for complementary and supplementary, reminder, complementary means that it adds up to 90. Supplementary means they add up to 180. So for this drawing on the left, figure on the left, it says what is the value of V? So remember the half of a square red line means that that's a right angle. So that means that this angle plus this angle has to be 90 degrees. And so again, V plus 34.8 equals 90. A bit tougher to do in your head, but here is the algebra work. You should end up with a final answer of 55.2. This problem on the right, okay, this is a flat line here, and it's this line, flat line makes 180 degrees, right? The other way to look at this is this angle here plus this angle here basically makes half a circle, right, which is 180 degrees. So the way that we write that sort of algebraically, let's just write what we just said. We said that n plus 121 has to equal 180 degrees, which is supplementary. And then we solve this. And after doing the work, you should get n equals 59. All right, here's our cool clock for today, which means it's time, once again, to practice what you just learned. Go ahead and pause the video, try these on your own. When you're ready, unpause, and we'll check your answers. Okay, now they've had time to work these problems, let's check your solutions. Okay, for the first problem, you should have gotten 36.8 degrees. And for the second problem, you should have gotten 59 degrees because all three of those add up to 180. All right, the last type of problem in this lesson is combined, meaning you will have to do both maybe some vertical and adjacent with complementary, supplementary. Okay, so for example, in this problem, we're trying to find J, and I notice that J is part of this X. right here. Now, I don't know what the opposite part of the x is, but I do know that this 40 degrees plus this angle has to be 90. So let's call this, I don't know, let's call it x, because I don't know what it is, right? Let's call that corner x. So I know that x plus, plus 40 has to equal 90. If we solve that, we get x equals 50. And now, right, so I know this corner is 50, which means that j is also 50. So 50 is the final answer. Okay, so you can see there I had to use complementary combined with vertical angles. All right, time to practice. Go ahead and pause the video, try these two on your own. When you're ready, unpause and we'll check your answers. Okay, now that you've had time to work these problems, let's check your solutions. Okay, for the first problem, we should have seen that r is part of a vertical angle, and so you just combine 25 plus 41 to get an answer of 66. And for the second problem, this one's sort of a disguise because there's a bunch of lines, there's extra angles, but at the end of the day, h is part of a vertical angle pair, and so it's just whatever the opposite side is, which is 29.2. All right, that is it for today. I hope you all have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.